So, hello, welcome to today's session. I'm Michael Conway of Renaissance, and we want to talk about Augmentt and how we work with Augmentt in the Irish marketplace. I'm delighted to be joined by Geroge Smith, who's based in Canada, working on behalf of Augmentt, so a slightly local voice, but hopefully he'll be able to go through things with you. Just the session today is talking really about Augmentt and their 100-point posture audit deep dive. So just a couple of little bits of housekeeping today. It's very important to us that the session is relevant to you and that the session is something that's valuable to you. All attendees are muted for the session. However, we want to get your involvement. So we want to see for you to ask us questions during the session. At any point during the session, if you raise the question, send them directly to myself or put them into the Q&A. We will then address the questions later on in the session, and that way you can get the most interactive value out of the session that you believe that for your organization. The other thing is, there are a number of people unfortunately unable to attend today's session, but they would like to have a recording, so we're going to record the session. So indeed, you might wish to share this among some people within your organization and pass it on to them. So if you, once again, any questions, send them to myself. Make sure this is interactive. Make sure that you get the value out of this that you want. And without further ado, I'll pass you over to George to kick off. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again with the Renaissance community. As Michael said, my name is Geroge Smith, local voice, originally a Bangor boy from up north, now living in Canada, and I have the pleasure of being the head of community and strategic partnerships here at Augmentt. So the focus of today, we're going to talk about a couple of things. The first thing I wanted to kickstart with was sort of a blueprint for M365 security that we here at Augmentt have created. We've got an advisory board of around 200 MSPs that we work with. And so we're constantly not only listening to the challenges and experiences that they're having with their customers, but that's also helping us inform and iterate on our product roadmap, as well as develop maybe some key strategies, because not only are we seeing a change in the industry away from traditional managed services into things that are much more SaaS focused on the cloud, but there's almost this emerging need for managed Microsoft security services. Microsoft is becoming such a big part of all businesses of all sizes, and it's not easy to manage, particularly if you're an MSP responsible for 10, 20, 30, 50 different tenants. So not only do we want to make it easy for MSPs to do that, but we also have some creative strategies about how you can explain and highlight that problem of hardening the M365 environment, and ultimately, how to add value to your clients and make some money there. As Michael mentioned, we'll also be focusing on our 100-point security posture report. So Microsoft, as many of you know, has an abundance of security checks and configurations that do not come turned on out of the box. And so now we have a dashboard that shows you 100 of these that you can then highlight to your customers as part of a security conversation, and as part of showing sort of before and after you've applied your security services. And then lastly, we have some interesting things around policy management that I'm really excited to share with you guys. So without further ado, we'll jump into sort of this blueprint for security. So, what we've done at Augmentt is through listening with our partners and kind of trying to do as much market research as possible, is we've kind of developed this framework of 5 different levels. And the key thing I think maybe to start by saying is sometimes it's maybe not the best idea to turn everything on for security all the time. The reason being, well, first of all, at a technical level, sometimes that may break some things, or worse, cause confusion for your clients. If you go in and harden a particular environment, all of a sudden pop-ups might come, they might lose access to things. People can be pretty adverse to change if they don't know that it's coming. So that's one reason why. The second reason is that maybe clients don't actually understand what it is you're doing, why it's important, and frankly, they might not really care. So there's definitely an emerging trend with MSPs where education is a huge part of helping their clients understand the value of cybersecurity. And a good way to do that is to kind of take it step by step, because then you're applying value all of the time, and also can associate that value with a particular price or ongoing project fee. So what we've done here is we've kind of created these different levels. And the nice thing about it is because it kind of strongly aligns with Augmentt, you have the ability to execute on each of these levels within the Augmentt platform with a few clicks of the button. So that's what I'm going to take you through here this morning. So as I mentioned, you want to be able to deliver value over time. So, I mean, and that's a key thing for anyone in the process. I mean, even MSPs on the call today, if you take your MSP hat off and think about any other type of service that where you're the actual partner or end user, sometimes you want to see that immediate value being applied. You know, the first 7 days of any relationship is important, whether it's with a contractor for your business, for marketing, content creation, whatever it is, or even in your personal life with a, you know, a construction worker or a plumber. You want things to see, you know, you want to be able to see instant value applied. The other thing as well is in continuous improvement. So again, being able to show, hey, you know, Microsoft and different frameworks say you're here, today you're here, we're going to get you up there, and here's all the things that we're doing day by day, week by week to get you there, and highlighting the value associated. Because again, if you get everything done within one day, then maybe that doesn't look as good as being able to take the client through an educational journey, showing them all the different things that you're doing. So I'll be covering these in detail, but this is just a kind of quick look at the cybersecurity levels. So, you know, first we want to start off with a risk assessment. So, you know, we have this functionality within Augmentt today. So you're able to go in, suck in all of your M365 clients into Augmentt and generate what we call a threat report. That's using the Graph API to pull in all of the risky metrics and information associated with that particular tenant that otherwise you would have to go and manually pull and probably download into an Excel spreadsheet, which isn't very flattering, you know, or attractive for anyone to look through, frankly. So this audit gives a snapshot of that customer environment, really drills into some key metrics around cybersecurity, things like inactive accounts, accounts at risk, people who don't have MFA turned on. And ultimately, it allows you to have a conversation with your client that ends with the question, how do you want me to handle the risk that I've uncovered for you today? Microsoft is not secure out of the box. There's work to be done here. Who's responsible for that? Is it you? Is it me? If it's me, I have a plan. And here's the project plan and costs associated with that. So with level 2, you want to kind of do that initial security configuration. And again, this is something that you can do within Augmentt today with one click of a button. It's called Quick Security Baseline. And the Quick Security Baseline is applying a different number of security policies and postures that no one's really going to argue with. It's that low-hanging fruit. It's making sure that, you know, access is set up properly, that users can't download suspicious or infected files, things that you would think maybe should be automatically configured within Microsoft when you set it up, but it's not. These things have to be turned on. So again, with one click of a button, these are some of the things you can implement. And then we have these resources available we've created for our MSP partners. So again, there's a bit of a paper trail. It's very easy to brand that you can show right away within the first 7 days. Here's a list of things that I've already implemented for you to make sure that you're on a road and a path to better cybersecurity within Microsoft. Now, after that, you know, the kind of one of the key cornerstones of any cybersecurity program is going to be multi-factor authentication, or 2FA. Again, Microsoft sadly does not make that as easy as it should be. And it comes back again for the MSP to educate the client on why that's important. I think most users today, whether it's through their banking applications, social media, have a grasp now finally of what MFA is and why it's important. The job of the MSP is being able to actually set that up and monitor it. The key thing I wanted to highlight here is that if you're an MSP today that is kind of going in through Entra ID and using the kind of per user setup to kind of click that user and set up MFA, if you don't already know, Microsoft is sunsetting that functionality, and it will no longer be available as of September next year, which means that if that's your predominant way of applying MFA, you now have a migration project on your hands. And Microsoft is kind of putting most of the MFA eggs into the conditional access basket. And so that's what we are focused on at Augmentt. And so later on, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the great multi-tenancy and functionality that we're bringing to CA policies within Microsoft. So moving on, after you've kind of got MFA set up, which I'm going to show you how we make that very easy to do, you want to maybe look at some other big picture things. Again, what we call this is sort of the security baseline, the level 4. These are some of the critical things that you want to implement that are definitely going to shape the experience that your end customers are having. So, you know, they're definitely going to see some changes. And so it's important to highlight what's coming, why it's happening, why it's important. And that's things like, you know, making sure that guests can't share things within Microsoft, that only people that have admin level access or specific privileges can get into certain things and actually, you know, review and do things like that. We've also got things, you know, within SharePoint, you know, unified audit logs, all these bits and pieces that may go over your client's head, but it's important to reference again back to a sheet like this that you can brand, to take them through all the different steps that you're doing and why it's important. And again, being able to show none of this is in place today. We're working to do this, and here's the value that we provide. And I think that's the key thing throughout this process is you're selling value, okay? And if clients aren't seeing that value, then it means they don't want to pay for it. So don't implement it. Labor isn't free, and there's labor associated with these things that you need to do. But the nice thing is, secretly, for on the MSP side of things, Augmentt makes this very, very easy to do, again, with a few clicks. But your client doesn't need to know that you can get this done within 5 minutes. Okay, so again, there's margins to be made. Then we can finally look into some of the things around, you know, cybersecurity compliance. So there's a snapshot there on the left of the 100-point assessment, and I'll actually jump into the portal later so you guys can get a better view of that. But again, it's color coded, so it's very, very easy at a glance to see. Green is good, yellow is only partially configured, red is not set up whatsoever, and then even items that are gray means that they're not measured. And so that's a nice segue into a conversation around licensing. You know, I think a lot of MSPs struggle with the concept of business premium licensing within Microsoft, because they understand all the benefits that come with that license tier. However, whenever you go to your customers and say, look, we want to put you on business premium, the customer goes, premium? I don't really like that word, frankly. And my Excel and my PowerPoint are working just fine, thank you. And what they don't understand is that business premium has nothing to do with the functionality of the core application suite associated with M365. It's all about security, and it's all about unlocking different pieces of security features that you, the MSP, need in order to accelerate the security of that particular account. It's just, you know, part of the Microsoft ecosystem, where of course some of those features are behind a paywall. But a report like this that you're seeing on the left really kind of simplifies that for a customer view to say, look, here's the things that we don't have access to. If we get access to them, if we turn it green, you're going to be ticking boxes for compliance, whether it's, you know, CIS 1.1.72 or this particular part of NIST, or even the more recent compliance framework SCUBA that's come out, that's much more applicable to specific cloud applications. So with that, I'll dive into kind of security point launch. So, I mean, within here, as you can see, like we've got 100 checks in here now, which is absolutely fantastic that you can go in and configure and show you're configuring up to 100 different settings within Microsoft, all from within Augmentt and all across multiple tenants. So the time saving there is significant and huge. As I mentioned, we do even have a compliance column, so you can go in there and you can filter things by CIS, by SCUBA, by NIST. We're working with our European partners as well to understand NIST. Again, you'd hope that maybe some of these compliance frameworks could be a little bit dissimilar or original in their naming, but a lot of them sound the same. So that's what we're working on right now for our European partners, for something more applicable to folks over in Europe as well. But again, the idea is showing that if there is a particular audit or conversation that you need to have for, maybe it's for cyber insurance, well, how do these things, you know, map to this particular compliance framework? Augmentt can help you do that through this report. Another important thing is, yes, we have 100 points in there, but maybe there's only one big customer you're dealing with who finds that interesting and wants that type of service. Maybe the majority of your customers are small guys who don't want to pay for cybersecurity. And so to give them a massive report where, you know, 92 things are red doesn't sound like a good idea. So what we have is the ability to actually customize this report, where you can easily go in and just through, toggles, turn off and ignore and remove some of those key checks. So again, you can tailor this report to tell the story that you want based on that particular customer's needs and risk appetite. So last month in October, we launched our official Conditional Access Policy Manager. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that on today's call as well. For anyone who is familiar or not, or even not familiar with conditional access in Microsoft, it is an absolute nightmare. So similarly to general security settings in Microsoft today, Microsoft is not multi-tenant, and you have to go in tenant by tenant, user by user to set things up. The same is true for conditional access. Whenever you go to set one up in Microsoft, there's maybe 7 or 8 different steps that you have to go through to set up one conditional access policy. And then there is no way for you to kind of clone and mimic that across different tenants, let alone groups. So again, if you're a technician, you have to go in, set it up, log out, clear your cache, go back into tenant number 2, repeat that process, and so forth, and do it 45 different times for across your 50 or so tenants. Then that's just for one policy. If there's a second policy that you want to implement based on a different type of metric, so maybe you're setting one based up on particular geo zone, and then you need to set up a second one based on user groups, same process. You have to go in and set it up one by one. So again, speaking to our MSP partners, and I would mention as well in this call, guys, if you are an Augmentt partner, you're welcome to join our advisory board. Like, we have regular monthly meetings that are kind of town hall style, where we want people to come and actively participate, not only in the discussions we're having, but to help us vote on and inform our product roadmap. And this is a direct result of those conversations. We were speaking to our MSP partners, and they're saying, look, it's really, really complicated. It's not easy. You can't hire an L1 technician and in their 3rd month expect them to be able to go in and set up conditional access policies within Microsoft. It's really a senior person's job. And now all of a sudden, I've got my only L3 technician wrapped up full time in creating, managing, and monitoring conditional access policies within Microsoft. It's really not a good use of their time. I want them focused on lucrative project work instead, or helping and coaching some of our younger team members. The other big problem is the absolute fear that something bad will happen. Okay, so it's very, very easy to lock people out based on just turning something on and not really thinking about it. And of course, this is a huge problem for MSPs, right? You lock someone out that shouldn't be locked out and get an angry phone call, or maybe you've set up a policy based on location, and then the CEO of that company goes outside of that location for a client meeting. They can't get in. All of a sudden, they're calling up, swearing and blinding down the phone to you because they've got a big client meeting, and this is just terrible. And so that's a really real fear for MSPs, is by using conditional access, accidentally locking somebody out that shouldn't be. And also, it's very hard to standardize, right? So again, because you're going through portal by portal, tenant by tenant, and because people have different varying levels of cybersecurity that they're paying for, there's no standardization, which makes it really, really hard to build processes around, as well as even service billing too. So what we have at Augmentt is a conditional policy manager. So what it allows you to do is, if you have a policy in Microsoft, you can import that into Augmentt, and unlike Microsoft, clone that and begin to apply it to other different tenants. So Augmentt will actually ingest that policy, remember all the good things that you've set up about it, and then allow you to push that to as many different tenants as you want. The other cool thing then is we have the ability for you to start grouping those policies. So again, instead of having to do things one by one, you can say, I want to set up my policy for MFA, that I want to include all the travel exclusions as well as the block legacy authentication. That's a nice little pack, and I want to apply that as a group of policies across all of my tenants through one click. Again, our kind of mission at Augmentt is to help create the easy button for Microsoft security. And I think this is a huge step forward towards accomplishing that to help MSPs. The other cool thing is we now have both alerts and a policy time machine. So alerts is kind of what you might imagine it to be. It's setting up a notification system to tell you if and when anything within a policy that you set up has been amended or changed. And again, these things can happen accidentally, or maybe again, it's a technician who's done something that they don't quite understand. So you can set up an alerting system to notify you if there's any changes, then review that change. Was that planned? Is it necessary? What the heck is going on? And then investigate as needed. The follow-up step to that is we have our own little DeLorean now within Augmentt that actually lets you, almost like a time machine, revert back to previous conditional access policies. So using that example, maybe an alert comes through and you're like, why did Billy update that? That shouldn't have happened. We're just going to revert back to before Billy made that update. Same thing, maybe you do get that angry phone call from a CEO that is at a client meeting and all of a sudden has been locked out for whatever reason. Again, you can use the time machine to revert back to make sure that they then can have access and open up and complete their job as needed. And then the final thing then is that CA policy baselines that I mentioned. So actually being able to group those policies together and implement, manage, and monitor them in an easy to use dashboard. So what I'll do now, guys, is with this last few minutes, I will quickly just hop in to kind of give you guys a little bit more insight into the product itself, because it's always nice to see these things in action. So first thing I'll do is just the security posture, as I mentioned. So quick high-level overview. At a glance, I can see all the companies that I'm managing. I can see their posture score. This is a demo environment, so everybody is garbage and needs help. And as you can see here by the color code, not a lot of green compliance going on. We definitely need to hop in and help out here. So let's pick on our legal client here. Acme Legal can access this at the tenant level. Here's the quick baseline button I was talking about. Click that, boom. All of these things are automatically applied. And again, that's that level 2 where the low-hanging fruit is. Can click that. So, any person can do that, even if you're not technical like myself. Can easily come in and start applying that low-level baseline across all tenants. Now, once you come in here, looking at the report in a bit more detail, you can see here are all the different checks that Microsoft are saying. And again, we have, 100 of these in here that you can scroll down to. It has what the name is. Is it off? Is it not even being measured? Specifically, why Microsoft is saying this is important. So this is verbatim taken from the Microsoft portal. Okay, this is Microsoft's verbiage as to why you need to have Entra ID guest user permissions access. People want to read about things and why they're important. As I mentioned, here's the compliance column, and also the impact that can be potentially made to the secure score. Okay, so Mr. Customer, like if we get the unified audit on and begin to measure that, you might be able to see a 4.5% increase to your security score. Now, the cool thing is we want to be able to actually turn these on. So again, all of these checks have cogs beside them. So I click the cog, I can now go into configure, and looking at the MFA specifically as this check, I can now actually begin to turn that green. A couple of different things. We have the Azure per user, so I can come in, click that user and turn it on with the click of a button. As I mentioned, that functionality isn't going to exist next year because Microsoft is taking it away. So everything is around conditional access policies. So I've got my conditional access policies here that I can easily add them to, or I can even create a brand new one right from within Augmentt. I don't need to go back to the Microsoft portal to do that. On the policy management, let's just jump into that quickly. So we've got my policy templates here, or posture templates. So again, instead of having to apply all of these things here, I'm just going to hop back in to show you what I'm talking about. So security posture, go back into legal. So instead of having to go through all of these one by one, we want to bundle them into a template, and that way just makes it easier to apply and also helps us create that standardization. So that's our posture templates. Again, I can create a brand new one if I want to, or maybe you have this kind of platinum or gold standard that kind of already contains a lot of the things that you want on mailbox auditing, DKIM, deletion of user OneDrive retention, all that kind of thing. Push it with one click of a button to whatever tenant it is you want. On the policy templates, the same thing is true. So again, we've got our different conditional access policies. So I have them here. If I wanted to create a new one, I can copy it from the environment, select the tenant that I want to. So we'll pick on my marketing client, select the policy, that I want to copy. So for this one, it's MFA, add a description, and then Augmentt will generate all of the information about it. You can deploy settings, review, and finish. So again, very, very, very easy to get that set up. And then in terms of policy management, same thing here. Maybe I've created a new policy and I don't want to push it yet because I'm worried that, I'm worried what it's going to do, frankly. You can deploy things in report only. So it's not going to actually implement, it's going to do it and kind of just show you what'll happen without actually restricting access or bumping anyone out. So you can almost test it in advance before you hit the go live button. That is it with kind of almost running out of time here. So I just wanted to open up the floor for any questions that may have come in, or if anybody wanted to see anything in a little bit more detail.
Thank you for that, George. I love the idea of testing before you go live, and your comment there about the fact that techs have a fear of one wrong setting wreaking havoc. Certainly, I think I've seen that before, and we've probably all seen it. And I think, but it makes a lot of sense to be able to test things before you actually kick them off. There's a couple of questions that come in here, and as I say, if anybody else has any questions, please send them in, and we can address them, because it's very important that this is interactive for you. A question here is: we've seen promos and talk of Augmentt MFA. Is this a new product?
Yes, thanks for bringing it up. So Augmentt MFA is it's not new in terms of functionality, but it is, I guess, a new SKU, a new line item. What we've done is basically take all of the existing functionality and features around MFA within Augmentt and just made that available as its own thing you can buy. So if you're, an MSP that is struggling with cybersecurity, that is constantly fighting fires and feels like you're underwater all the time, looking at conditional access policy management, all the stuff that needs to happen feels overwhelming, maybe we can just agree that start with MFA and get that done. And so that's what Augmentt MFA is. It gives you access to the MFA report. It gives you access to pull in all of your clients and actually set up MFA, whether you still want to use the Azure per user, as I mentioned, or whether you want to use some of this conditional access functionality that we've seen here today. And the great thing is that it's 99 euros a month for up to 1,000 users. So we have a huge amount of interest in that for people just wanting to get their foot in the door, maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the scale of things that need to be set up in Microsoft. So a lot of MSPs are saying, you know what, I'll just get Augmentt MFA, and then I can take care of MFA and begin to build a program from there. So it aligns well with what I was talking about, those kind of steps. Sometimes it's actually maybe not the best idea to do everything all at once, particularly if people don't understand what that is or why they should pay for it. Start with MFA, keep your own costs low, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and it's a minimum level. It sounds very interesting, because I see in one of your earlier slides you were talking about if the client ultimately sees value, and if they don't see value, this, what you're trying to do is deliver them something on a phase basis, I guess. And from the point of view of managed service provider, that allows them to build value into that for the customer as well, and build their time in. I guess, is that something that you've seen as a sort of a successful type of strategy, going through, particularly in North America and other countries before Ireland?
Yeah, I was actually speaking with 2 MSPs over in England last week, and they basically bought it sight unseen, for lack of a better term, because they understood how it would work for their business. And what they intend to do is they're getting Augmentt MFA. They are rolling it out to everyone to get MFA turned on. Then cue conversations about why these changes have made, why things are suddenly a little bit more restrictive, why I have to, use this app or things with their customers. That's opening the cybersecurity conversation for them. They're then using Augmentt because they have the MFA report. They have all those kind of like nice clean dashboards to show. And then they kind of start a segue conversation into, this is actually MFA is just what part of, 100 different checks, and this checks 3 boxes. So we would love, Mr. Customer, to make you more secure, but this is the tool we would use, and that's part of our expenses. So that's why, if you'd like us to do this, we're going to put you on an enhanced Microsoft security program for an extra £10, €10 per month. And something I hadn't thought about from the vendor side is they like that because they've already bought Augmentt MFA, keeping their costs low. And then they're actually kind of already able to sell to the clients and have the clients then buy up front, and they can come back and then buy or top up the functionality that they need from Augmentt. And what's key as well, Michael, is the more people they get on that service, the more margin they make, because the more efficient they're coming, because the more of their clients are in Augmentt. So the more they're in there, the more they can do across most of their IT estate.
Yeah. It's a very interesting one generally, and we see that with cyber generally, and managed service providers. They're looking and saying, well, listen, actually, if I protect my customers and their organization, their people from doing silly things, and if I can get them to pay to do that, then I have less things to fix as well. So it's ultimately and we have seen some partners who've had the challenge where they've actually got involved and actually haven't pushed the customers hard enough, and I don't mean very hard, but just push them a little bit, and they end up bearing the brunt of it, and actually, the partner ends up taking that cost, and that's not good business. So we see the MSPs who are actually structuring to go forward are actually, they're bringing their customers on a journey, but if they're not going on that journey, they leave them behind and move on,
Yeah,
because
and don't be afraid to be
cost
harsh.
them. Yes.
Yeah, get on the train or walk. That's your choice. So
Well, yeah, I know it sounds good, but we do, and we have seen partners who've actually said, "Listen, Mr. Customer, we're not moving forward with you because you haven't hit the minimum standards. You're not moving forward the way we need to be doing. So we can't support you.
yeah,
And if we're going to have to support you at an economic level, you're not going to want to pay that money. So pay it, invest, bring up to the level." But anyway, sorry, I'm digressing slightly, but it is something that you mentioned as well. And I liked your gentle view as to Microsoft licensing, and it can be challenging.
gentle
And
view.
that's a nice word for it. I'm sure everybody watching this will understand that. But the business premium argument is, premium sounds like I'm getting something that I don't necessarily need, whereas you're saying that there's minimum levels of security in there.
Yeah, it's just you have to educate your client on what it really means, because as as consumers on planet Earth, that is what premium means, right? You go to a restaurant, you go to rent a car, do you want the premium package? No, because that just means like it's gonna hurt my wallet more. Or yes, because I'm a high roller and everything needs to be premium. That is not what a business premium license. I mean, Microsoft could make it easier by just calling it something else, frankly, and save us all a lot of hassle. But that's why that security posture report is really key, because you can go in, you can have all the toggles on, so it's showing all 100, and you can go, look, without business premium, it's not that we can't even turn this on. We don't even have access to this. All this stuff is grayed out. And as you can see, if we are able to do all this, you're going to be significantly more secure and have a massive reduction in risk to your client environment. And then just tie that in with all the things that are happening in the world. Spend a morning with a cup of coffee on Google just looking up, cyber attack stories. There's so many out there that massive news media outlets don't want to talk about it anymore, but everyone's getting hacked, everyone's paying ransomware, and a lot of businesses don't really understand that. Particularly if you're working, the guys I was speaking to that I mentioned in England, they're focused on schools. So, and the schools think, well, we're educating children. No one will hurt us. Absolutely wrong. No, you're ripe for the picking. In Toronto, where I live, there's Toronto Sick Kids Hospital. They got hacked. Someone hacked a hospital for sick children and extorted them. So it's open season, and you have to
Yeah,
prioritize your own
it's about
security.
money. These guys haven't got morals. No,
Yeah.
it doesn't. But moving on from the good news stories that you're bringing to us all. But listen, I think all the partners who are here live with us and who will see this as a recording also have had those experiences, and I think they're aware. But I think the challenge often is to explain to the customer, "Hey, Mr. Customer, these are baseline things that you need to be doing." But I think ultimately it's everybody. We have to bring everybody along on that journey. But a question here that's come in as well is what's next on your product roadmap?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're actually meeting next week to sort of discuss where we want to go. There's certainly a lot of a lot of work to be done, I think, in continuing to make easy buttons in Microsoft. I would say, we've just released the policy time machine, which has been our focus. And the thing I want to add as well, Michael, for those on the call or listening to this in the future, this is all functionality that if you're an Augmentt partner, you are getting. There's no increase to your costs. It is something we're continually adding to our platform to add value. And so another reason, you know, to get involved now and kind of lock in some pricing and be able to grandfather in. We have guys that signed up in 21 that are giddy with how much they're paying for Augmentt and keep getting things added, you know, on a quarterly basis. But to answer your question, there's going to be a lot more focus on the policy stuff. So we're going to continue to go deeper and make it even easier for you to harden the M365 environment through not only conditional access, but also through, you know, because there is more than 100 things that Microsoft says should be implemented. So that's definitely going to be a focus for us as well. The other thing we want to do is go back to our Engage module, which folks may remember is sort of the easy button for help desk. So you can come in, click Michael Conway, click reset password. Augmentt bakes in all the best practices to make that easy. We want to add additional buttons as well as even scheduling functionality. So for example, if I work for Michael and Michael's firing me on Friday, Michael can call the MSP and say, we're getting rid of George, make sure he's ready to be offboarded at 5 p.m. on Friday. You can use Engage to get that all set up. So as soon as 5 p.m. hits, boom, George is offboarded. He's signed out of M365. He's blocked from signing in. His password's been reset. His OneDrive has been moved over to a different location, all that stuff. So you can get it set up on a Tuesday morning and not have to work late on a Friday.
Well, 5 o'clock isn't late, George. You'll be fine. Well, I wouldn't expect you to work that late before we.
That's why you're firing me, right? So,
but moving on. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. It sounds like really what you're talking about basically is people investing in the journey with Augmentt, so that you know, it's an MSP product for an MSPs to help you guys deliver the service that you need to your clients and to your customers. The baseline review, is that's something that's very easily driven. I guess that gives everybody sort of a task list and a job of investment and opportunities to sell to their customers.
Yeah, I think it does. The way that we created the dashboard and report is just very user friendly. So someone who has no idea or is very limited, you know, in their understanding of an IT can just look at that report and kind of see, okay, there's a bunch of things on here. There's a lot of red. That doesn't look good. And then if you're able to compare that with, you know, another client's journey and or even just, you know, some of the things that, you know, once you turn on will change and go green. Again, it's just about storytelling. I think, you know, I've worked at an MSP before Augmentt, and this was the struggle I always found was keeping the dolphins away. And for me, the dolphins at that company were the really, really smart ones, but they couldn't talk to humans. And so it was like, stop, please stop melting the heads of our clients by talking about, you know, really in-depth IT things. Just explain to them what the problem is, how you're going to fix it, and how much it's going to cost, and the risk associated of not doing something like this. And understand that most people probably aren't going to sign the dotted line the first time that you bring this up. It's a process, and education's a huge part of that. So build your stack and your tools and your presentations around technology that allows you to do that.
I'll keep an eye on the dolphins and I think everybody on this call will know who dolphins are, and they'll identify a couple of them. Listen, I don't have any other questions at this stage, and what I would say is, listen, thank everybody for attending the session, and I'd welcome everybody to reach out to the Renaissance team or the Augmentt team, and we can put you in touch with each other, give you a more in-depth view of the Augmentt platform and the various things that it can do for you and do for your clients and your customers, and help you bring you on your journey as an MSP in terms of making profit going forward. And for those who are watching this as a recording, please reach out to us also, and we will facilitate you with whatever we can to help you drive and develop your business, because we know it's a challenging environment out there and everybody has to look at these things. But particularly like to thank you for attending, everybody for attending, and George, thank you very much for whatever time in Canada it is today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Michael. Always a pleasure.
Cheers. Thanks.
Bye.